Uncharted is the newest movie that's directed by Ruben Fleischer and is the newest movie that is based on a video game. Basically, the video games are very much like how this movie's directed in the sense of it's just like an adventurous game, finding treasure, finding different artifacts in the world. It's very history based, and it stars Tom Holland playing the main character as Nathan Drake. He's a very young guy in this movie, and he is brought on by Mark Wahlberg's character Sully, who is also a person that likes to scavenge the world for different things, and they end up trying to find some gold in this episodic event, I guess you'd call it. Now, generally speaking, video game movies are not that great. There's a lot of instances where video game movies are just not well made. They tend to be like very bad in a lot of cases, because it's like video game movies are kind of like, it's better to play the video game instead of watching a movie of it, because you can have different experiences with video games rather than like a movie is like a singular vision almost, whereas a video game is like you can have like different varieties of the visions. But for sure, this is one of the better ones that I have seen as of late. For starters, the cast is really good in this movie. Obviously, the two leads, the standouts in Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. I've had discussions with people where they said that they don't like Tom Holland in this role necessarily, or I've seen it from other people as well, that they think that Nathan Drake should be an older version of Nathan Drake. Like, this shouldn't be like Tom Holland's like in his mid-20s during this, so they wanted him to be a bit older than this, which I can understand that, but it's also like Tom Holland is coming off the wave of Spider-Man No Way Home, and I mean, you should know what happens in No Way Home by now. I mean, if you're not a fan of movies, if you don't know what the hell happened there. So it makes sense to me that Tom Holland would be in this movie, and he was portrayed a little bit younger. Like, I mean, honestly, if we were going off of like what would have been a better, person to portray Nathan Drake, I would have probably said Tom Cruise if he was younger, but Tom Cruise is on the older side, and quite honestly, Uncharted seems like it's a series that could be pushed forward. And I know that Mission Impossible is a series that's being led by Tom Cruise, but remember that Tom Cruise started that at a younger age, so it's probably nearing the end of its run soon, but it started with Tom Cruise as a younger actor. So Uncharted can be like that in the sense of Tom Holland is their actor that can lead down the road. And I have to say, Tom Holland did a really good job in this movie. The stunt performances that he did in this movie was excellent, I think. And because he's not in a suit with a mask on, you could actually see his face doing all these stunts, which is a big improvement in a lot of instances. And I generally think he does really well in this movie. Mark Wahlberg is also an interesting character in this movie when playing Sully as kind of like a self-centered kind of character when he brings on Nathan Drake to help him find a ship full of gold. And I did really like him in this movie. It is kind of strange because I've seen Mark Wahlberg do a lot of good movies, but I've also seen Mark Wahlberg do a lot of bad movies. And it's nice to see him do something good nowadays. I think that the banter between him and Tom Holland was excellent in this movie. It may come across as slap-happy Marvel-style humor maybe to some people, but I genuinely think that they played off each other really, really well. And then I will say the villains aspect of the characters is where the kind of movie takes a bit of a downfall, sort of. There isn't a clear villain for the later half of the movie. There's kind of one like towards like, when the bigger picture is being shown and they get on like their first mission and who they're kind of going up against. But once like the missions start to go and then they're like kind of on their final sort of third act of the movie is where it shifts a lot. And I think it's a bit of a stulting thing in this movie, but I do think that it was still entertaining nonetheless, because there are different villains that bring different skills and aspect to the story too. And I have to say that's really a testament to the writing as well. And once again, the comedy in this movie, especially the way that Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland play off each other, is really well done. There's a sequence where there's three characters with Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg, and then a third person are like in like a church, and then they're walking through the church trying to find some pathways, and there's like a running joke with like nuns, because Nathan Drake was like raised in like, it seems like a Catholic kind of church almost, and they just run with like this nun joke for a good amount of time in there, and I was laughing the entire time. I really think it nailed the humor really well. I think it had a really good pace as well. There was a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and it kind of kept a quick phonetic pace throughout the entire time. It does slightly dip a little bit after like their first big mission is kind of over, and then they kind of slide into a different aspect in the story. So it does kind of stall a little bit, but once like you get over the hump a little bit and then you get back into the action almost is where the movie starts to pick up again. So there really wasn't a lot of downtime in this movie. They kind of generally flowed at a really good pace, and I thought the action in this movie was really well done. There are some aspects in this movie that I think that the CGI is a little heavy-handed, especially like the plane scene where they're falling out of a plane. There are some instances in that sequence where it gets a little CGI heavy, but for the most part, I think that the stunts were well done. You could see Tom Holland running across a bunch of rooftops, and you could see him, jumping over barricades and stuff like that, and fighting some of these like brutes in this movie. It is really good in that sense. There are just some like high-end stuff involving helicopters and other ships and stuff like that kind of get a little out of hand, but again, it's an action movie, so once again based on a video game, so I would expect them to kind of lean into the hokiness of that sort of stuff, because I mean, you go to these movies expecting kind of like a lot of like explosions and like dumb stuff happening anyways, so as long as it's like kept to like a minimum and mostly realistic, then I think it's kind of like it kind of evens itself out in the end. I'm going to give Uncharted 4 stars. In the end, Uncharted is a really fun time. This movie didn't need to be like grandiose. It didn't need to be like some Infinity War style where there's like a very amazing narrative along with a lot of great action in it. And this isn't a bottom of the barrel movie like Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like, this is a higher end video game movie, and I generally think it'll grab the attention of the audiences. I think that this can run for a while. It does also lend itself to be open to that. So I'm interested to see what they do in this. Again, Mark Wahlberg really nailed it in this story. Tom Holland is always fantastic. He's like the new face of Hollywood, it seems like to me right now. And I would definitely recommend seeing the movie. And this is coming from a guy that never played the Uncharted games before. And, well, I'm most certainly going to do now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. And I will talk to y'all next time.